Tribalism, common ethnic identity, common memories, common roots, relationships which trace back to the same way, to the same starting point, things that you don't have to explain to the other person, things which are taken for granted, and a sense of responsibility to him. I mean, we say in Hebrew, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Lezeh. Every Jew is responsible for the other. We're not people where we live on our own. You say Kaddish, you have to have a minyan. Everything is based on group. It's true with the Arabs too, up to a point. With them it's family. I mean, for me, the definition has always been a Jew is someone who makes a voluntary, repetitive affirmation of belonging to the Jewish people. I'd like to spread the net as wide as possible, along with my friend Rabbi David Hartman. A Jew is a Jew is a Jew. I think the distinctions between Reform, Conservative and Orthodox are divisive and absurd. Nobody anymore uses the word piety. You can have a pious Reform Jew, you can have a pious Conservative Jew. You know? A believer is a believer. So I like to think that one can relate to all Jews, but it's more difficult to relate to Jews who don't know what it's all about, who think Jews are somebody who eat chicken soup and matzo balls once a year. It's harder to get close to them. Now that may sound elitist, snobbish, and I suppose it is. But it's human nature. We're all of us more comfortable in our own milieu. Ben Gurion, who's a very wise man, used to say, small states should behave with modesty. Now we're not modest. Partly because we're achievers. I believe we're a gifted people, very gifted people. I mean, 27% of Nobel Prize winners in medicine are Jews, 28% in physics. I mean, we're gifted people. It's in our genes. When it comes to statehood, the ability to wield power is only in the military sense. We're not power brokers. We don't even initiate propaganda wars. Moral strength, moral power only has validity amongst people who are deep thinkers. In the everyday world, it doesn't count. I mean, has the average Gentile ever heard of Martin Buber or Avram Heschel? Noch nicht. You know, people who are our main thinkers, the Rambam, Judah Magnus, the Best. Yeah. Yes, within ourselves we wield a moral power, but it doesn't count with the outside world, except for a few academics. What counts today in statehood is power, geopolitical power. And unfortunately, being surrounded with the Arab states who regard us as trespassers on Muslim land, there's no answer. I mean, we of the West think about the struggle with the Arabs in terms of 17th century Descartesian philosophy, rationality, logic, but they walk past each other with emotional thinking. They don't meet. So in our belief that we have a place in the Middle East, a historical right to be here, we have come to depend not on moral force but on military force. And things happen, we make mistakes. mean, having been in the Israeli army, I know very well. I think the occupation started in '67 was one of the worst things that ever happened to us. Ben Gurion wanted to give back the whole West Bank. But the Arabs at Khartoum in '67 said no, 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 no peace, no recognition, no negotiations, Gornish, nothing. So we haven't got much of a chance. Mr. Obama thinks we can be nice and negotiate. I don't believe it. I'm not a rightist, lahavdil. I'm centre leftist. But the difference only in East End thinking and Israeli thinking is in the East End we could only run little committees. And to some extent I think we run our government in the same way. People throw their resignations about. You know, the worst thing that can happen to a Jew is his resignation gets accepted. And he stands by the door waiting to be slapped back. No, there's a big difference between being a government, having relationships with the outside world on a polite, diplomatic, governmental level, and being a minority of people struggling to make a living. Different worlds. Well, the Jewish brain is plastic. You need generals, we can make generals. You need computer scientists, we make scientists. I mean, underneath it are people who just probe and like to ask questions and think and not take anything for granted. I think some of it comes out of the back and forth in the chavrusa in the yeshivas. But the difference between East End and here is statehood. We're a minority in the larger geopolitical sense. We were a minority there in a different sense.